watching to see which correctional services facility Jacob Zuma will be taken to. He's currently in the custody of the South African Police Service, and he is being escorted to a correctional services facility. Officials still not willing to say exactly where, but our reporters are all over that story, and of course it is the story that will dominate this bulletin for the next hour. Former President Jacob Zuma handing himself over to police, and he will end up in jail soon. Let's get reaction from the ANC's national spokesperson, Pule Mabe. Pule, thanks for speaking to us at this hour. Of course, former President Jacob Zuma is on his way to that correctional services facility. You reckon that the ANC is satisfied with how this unfolded?
Evening, Shahan, and evening to your viewers. Well, the ANC first has noted the statement issued by the Jacob Zuma Foundation, confirmed by the Police Ministry, that our former President Jacob Zuma has since complied with the incarceration order as issued by the Constitutional Court. We have always maintained that we in the ANC don't interfere with decisions of the courts, and have consistently affirmed the independence as well as the supremacy of the Constitution of the land. We have always said that the courts must always be understood or be seen doing their work without any form of political interference.
Yeah, and of course you had several officials going to Nkandla to speak to Jacob Zuma at the weekend. Have you as a party reached out to him at all today to find out exactly what he was going to do, give him advice on what to do? Because we were hearing that there was an ultimatum given to him by the police minister, etc., to actually hand himself over before they came to arrest him. Have you had any conversation or any chat with him at all?
Well, just to clarify one matter of principle, the ANC will never in any way interfere with the work of law enforcement agencies or get into the engagement that they might be having with individual citizens who might have to either hand themselves or be interacting with those in law enforcement agencies in whatever way or form. So wouldn't have gotten into that space. What the African National Congress would have done over the weekend, because there were already scenes after the Constitutional Court issued the order, there were already scenes of many of our comrades going to Nkandla in numbers, some seen not wearing masks. There were also potential threats of violence, people wielding guns in the air and all of that. And this was not in keeping with the kind of stability that we'd love to see in the country. And what we since did was to make sure that we postponed the National Executive Committee that would have started on Friday. It only happened this Monday, but it was then a special National Executive Committee to then reflect and get a report from the Provincial Executive Committee on the work that they shall have done to reach out to the former president, but to also try and mitigate what could have been a potentially super spreader event outside Nkandla, outside former President Jacob Zuma's home, because we've got the problem of COVID as well. In all else we do, we've got to also be seen to be protecting lives of others. We always encourage our people that it is not the problem for them to associate. This is enshrined in the Bill of Rights, in the Constitution of the land. But in the manner that they do it, especially now under COVID conditions, we've got to make sure that we place the protection of lives of others even much higher because of what we are dealing with as a country and the rest of the globe.
Yeah. Pule, the question before that was whether you've had any contact with Jacob Zuma in the past 24 hours.
Well, I thought that I was dealing with what would have happened over the weekend. I wouldn't have known whether there were engagements with our provincial leadership there and all of that. So I'm not aware of any other engagement. Safe to say that where matters were at now, they were really matters of law enforcement. They had very little to do with the African National Congress. The appeal that the African National Congress was making out to society is that the manner in which our people carry themselves on the ground must not serve to undermine the stability of the country. It was quite encouraging that even when he ultimately handed himself over, he also mentioned that he wouldn't have wanted a bloodbath in his name. That is in accordance with what the Jacob Zuma Foundation will have reflected on, which shows that he also placed the interest of the people of this country first more than his.
But he's been fighting this for a long time. I mean, he didn't want to go on trial. He didn't want to go to the Zondo Commission, so I don't know about that. But just as having him as the former president of the African National Congress for 9 years, right? You respected him as a leader, you voted him into power, and now he's going to spend time behind bars. How do you feel about that as an organization?
Well, it's not an easy one. We have never gone through something like this under the democratic dispensation. Former President Jacob Zuma has been of the African National Congress for 2 consecutive terms. First elected in 2007 against the National Conference, and elected again in 2012 at the 53rd National Conference. So conference of the ANC go on for a 5-year period. So he was president of the ANC for a full 10-year period. He served all those 2 terms and concluded all of those and took the African National Congress to those 2 conferences. But he has also led the African National Congress in many other capacities before he could become president, including having served as deputy president of the African National Congress before. So what we can take away from him is that he's one of the revered freedom fighters of the African National Congress. He's from Robben Island. He has been in exile and has been part of a number of initiatives that sought to get the country to where it is today. So there's a great role that he played to democratize the Republic of South Africa, which we can't take away from him. He's still a freedom fighter as well.
Yeah, definitely can't take that away. There's no dispute there. But, the allegations against him are quite serious, especially, looting from a democratic country which he was supposed to protect and try to uplift its people. And those are serious allegations which he is refusing to answer to. And unfortunately, that history will remember this. And this is something that will not be forgotten when it comes to Jacob Zuma. So, Pule, just the way forward for the African National Congress on this matter. Jacob Zuma, of course, will be hearing from the High Court in Pretoria on Friday. He's going back to the Constitutional Court next week for a rescission on this imprisonment that was handed down to him. Your stance will be one that will say that we have to respect the outcome of the law, which you've said to me yesterday, right? And I'm sure you're going to stick to that stance, even if the Constitutional Court says he still has to stay behind bars for 15 months.
Well, of course. I mean, we have always maintained that we don't interfere with decisions of the courts. We have consistently affirmed the independence as well as the supremacy of the land. We get merits and demerits, especially have been ventilated out in the court. The courts must remain independent in that they are. We must also uphold the supremacy of our own constitution. We must also make sure that the rights of every citizen is also protected, because the rights of every citizen, including the rights of former President Jacob Zuma, are protected by the Bill of Rights. If there are matters that they feel need to be ventilated before the court, it is well within their own rights to approach the court and ventilate on those matters. Those rights are protected in the Constitution. They enjoy the very same privilege like any other citizen.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. ANC National Spokesperson Pule Mabe.